The story of coffee's rise from obscure plant to global commodity is deeply intertwined with the political, cultural and economic history of the Ottoman Empire. At the height of their power, the Ottomans played a pivotal role in transforming coffee from a local Arabic beverage into a widely consumed product that eventually dominated European markets. This video explores how the Ottomans cultivated and controlled the coffee trade, and how their monopoly over this lucrative commodity influenced European economies and cultural practices. The story of coffee begins in the highlands of Ethiopia, where according to legend a goat herd named Kaldi discovered the energizing effects of coffee beans in the 9th century. The plant made its way to the Arabian Peninsula, particularly the region of Yemen, where it was grown and consumed by Sufi monks to aid their nightly prayers. By the 15th century, coffee had spread throughout the Muslim world, becoming a central part of religious and social life. The Ottomans encountered coffee in the early 16th century during their expansion into the Arabian Peninsula. Coffee houses, or kahvehane, quickly became a prominent feature of Ottoman cities, serving not only as places to enjoy the beverage, but also as centers of social, political and intellectual life. Coffee soon transcended its religious origins, and became a cultural symbol in the Ottoman Empire, enjoyed by people from all walks of life. This marked the beginning of Ottoman control over the coffee trade. By the early 16th century, the Ottomans had consolidated control over Yemen, which was then the world's primary coffee-growing region. The city of Mocha, on the southwest coast of Yemen, became the center of the coffee trade, and its name would eventually become synonymous with the drink itself. The Ottomans established a monopoly over the production and export of Yemeni coffee, tightly controlling the trade routes through the Red Sea and the Arabian Peninsula. This control allowed them to regulate the supply of coffee to other parts of the world, including Europe. The Ottoman government imposed strict measures to ensure its control over coffee production and trade. Yemeni coffee beans were boiled before export, a practice designed to prevent the cultivation of coffee plants outside the empire. By controlling the raw beans, the Ottomans sought to maintain their monopoly over coffee production, and ensure that no other region could easily replicate their success in growing and exporting coffee. This not only secured the Ottomans' dominance of the coffee trade, but also kept prices high, ensuring a steady stream of revenue for the empire. Europeans were first introduced to coffee in the 16th century, largely through their interactions with the Ottoman Empire. European merchants and diplomats visiting Ottoman cities such as Istanbul experienced coffee in the empire's bustling coffee houses, which were already central to the social fabric of Ottoman urban life. The beverage quickly became popular with European visitors who began to bring it back to their home countries. The first European accounts of coffee describe it as a mysterious and exotic drink, both intriguing and somewhat intimidating because of its association with the Islamic world. Some early European commentators referred to coffee as a Muslim beverage, and questioned its suitability for Christian consumption. Despite these early reservations, coffee began to spread across Europe, particularly in cities with close commercial ties to the Ottoman Empire such as Venice, which served as a major hub for trade between Europe and the East. In the late 16th century, European traders began to import small quantities of coffee mainly through Venetian merchants, who had access to Ottoman-controlled markets. The Ottomans, keen to maintain control of the lucrative trade, exported coffee in limited quantities, ensuring that demand far exceeded supply. This helped to keep prices high in European markets, where coffee was initially considered a luxury product consumed only by the wealthy elite. As coffee consumption grew in Europe, coffee houses began to emerge as social and cultural institutions mirroring their Ottoman counterparts. The first coffee house in Europe opened in Venice in 1645, followed by establishments in England, France and the Netherlands. These coffee houses quickly became popular meeting places for intellectuals, artists, merchants and politicians, encouraging debate and the exchange of ideas much as in Ottoman cities. The introduction of coffee houses in Europe was a direct result of the Ottoman monopoly on the coffee trade. European merchants and entrepreneurs, keen to capitalize on the growing demand for coffee, established these venues as places where the beverage could be enjoyed by the public. However, Ottoman control over the supply of coffee meant that European coffee houses were initially dependent on Ottoman imports, further strengthening the empire's economic grip on European markets. The Ottoman monopoly on coffee had significant economic implications for European countries, particularly those involved in long-distance trade. European nations such as Venice, the Dutch Republic and England were keen to establish direct trade routes with the coffee-producing regions of the Arabian Peninsula and Indian Ocean, but the Ottomans' control of key ports and trade routes made this difficult. Venice, with its strategic position on the Mediterranean and its long-standing commercial ties with the Ottoman Empire, became the main entry point for coffee into Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries. Venetian merchants profited immensely from the coffee trade, acting as intermediaries between the Ottoman-controlled supply and the growing demand in European markets. Venice's wealth and influence as a trading power grew considerably during this period, in part due to its role in the coffee trade. The Dutch, seeking to circumvent the Ottoman monopoly, attempted to grow coffee in their own colonies in the East Indies. In the late 17th century, Dutch traders succeeded in establishing coffee plantations in Java, breaking the Ottoman monopoly and introducing a new source of coffee to European markets. This development marked the beginning of the decline of Ottoman control over the global coffee trade, as other European nations, including the French and the British, followed suit by establishing coffee plantations in their colonies. The Ottoman monopoly on coffee began to weaken in the late 17th century, as European powers increasingly sought to free themselves from the economic dominance of the empire. The Dutch played a pivotal role in this shift, as their successful cultivation of coffee in Java provided Europe with an alternative source of the commodity. This development reduced Europe's dependence on Ottoman coffee imports, significantly undermining the empire's control over the trade. The French followed the Dutch in establishing coffee plantations in their Caribbean colonies, notably in Saint-Domingue, now Haiti, and Martinique. These plantations quickly became major coffee producers, further eroding the Ottomans' hold on the global coffee market. By the 18th century, European colonies in the Caribbean and Indian Ocean had overtaken the Ottoman-controlled Arabian Peninsula as the primary source of coffee for European consumers. In addition to these geopolitical developments, the rise of European mercantilism and the expansion of colonial empires contributed to the erosion of the Ottoman monopoly on coffee. European nations, driven by the desire to control their own supply of valuable commodities, increasingly turned to their overseas colonies for coffee production, bypassing Ottoman markets altogether. Despite the decline of Ottoman economic control over the coffee trade, the cultural legacy of Ottoman coffee in Europe remained strong. The introduction of coffee and coffee houses had a profound impact on European society, shaping intellectual, political and social life. European coffee houses became centers of Enlightenment thought, where philosophers, writers and politicians gathered to discuss new ideas and debate the pressing issues of the day. These establishments played a crucial role in the development of modern European society, just as they had in the Ottoman Empire. Moreover, the cultural associations between coffee and the Ottoman Empire persisted long after the empire's economic control over the commodity had waned. In many European countries, coffee was still seen as an exotic and luxurious product closely associated with the East. The word coffee itself is derived from the Ottoman Turkish word, kahve, reflecting the lasting influence of the Ottomans on European language and culture. The Ottoman Empire's monopoly on the coffee trade in the 16th and 17th centuries had a profound impact on the economic and cultural landscape of Europe. By controlling the production and export of coffee from Yemen, the Ottomans were able to regulate the flow of this valuable commodity to European markets, maintaining high prices and exerting considerable economic influence. This monopoly shaped the early coffee trade in Europe, fueling the rise of coffee houses and fostering new cultural practices. Although the Ottoman monopoly eventually weakened with the rise of European colonialism and alternative sources of coffee, the cultural legacy of Ottoman coffee endured. Today, coffee remains a symbol of the deep historical ties between Europe and the Ottoman Empire, a reminder of the complex economic and cultural exchanges that shaped the early modern world.